see our identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
It's time for cheat codes.
It's time for cheat codes. It's time for cheat codes.
It's August 18th, 2016. Welcome to episode 108 of the Cheat Codes Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're always glad to have you with us. We got a good show for you. The next hour is us drinking a few beers and going over our favorite bits from the past week of video game, tech, and pop culture news. My name is Joe Erskine. I am your host, and we're coming to you from a spaceport. And there's some scummy villains running around. You know how this goes.
We all know how it goes.
Today I'm here with Cheat Codes keeper of the free stuff, Mr. Nick TK421 Golish.
Hey, why aren't you at your post?
And Cheat Codes design guru Bernard Wedge Hong.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here too. Today on the show, we'll hit up Tashi Station to get some power converters to sort out the following bits: obsession, flattery, and engagement. All of it. We're going to talk about how games hook us, based on an article. You'll see. We're going to talk about how wrong that Reddit user is about how long it takes to put multiplayer in any game. And casinos are adopting video game mechanics, and now your money is gone. And for today's lightning round, we'll lock S-foils in attack positions to explain the following topics. Drones. Drones to protect us and our world from ourselves. Mostly. And lastly, we'll comment on the pseudo-return of THQ. Gentlemen, how's your week been? How's it going? How are you? Bernard, what's happening, dude? What are you working on? What's the latest?
I've been working on melting in New York because it's extremely hot here.
I imagine that's probably the case. Like 110 in the shade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. I do not miss summers in New York. People get crazy, man. They get really upset. Like the heat makes people mad in New York. It's
People go
pretty
crazy
gross.
on the streets.
Yeah. Nick, how are you? How was work?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I had a good day today.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that later, but
Yeah.
seeing as how I'm your producer, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I promised to record my hours.
Good stuff. All right. Very quickly, let's talk about what we're washing the episode down with. While it's fairly obvious we've got a Star Wars theme happening this week, we did so to honor the life of Kenny Baker, the guy who crawled into a can and beeped and booped his way into all of our hearts. He gave life to R2-D2, and we're sad that he's gone. He passed away at 88 years old this past week. So we're raising a glass of Hotbox Imperial IPA from the folks at Joseph James Brewing to send him off appropriately. Cheers, Mr. Baker.
Cheers.
It's not blue milk, but it'll have to do. Yeah. Bernard's drinking too, everybody, just so you know. All right. Let's get to it, I think, unless anybody has any, speak now or forever hold your peace.
But I wanted to go to Tashi to get my power converters.
So we talk about games a lot. If you listen to this show, you probably like listening to people talk about games, and you have some opinions of your own probably. But we talk about games because we like games, and games are literally designed to be enjoyed. So wake up, sheeple. A lot of thought and work goes into making games feel necessary, compelling even. Salon posted an article recently talking about how games suck us in, and one guy even wrote a book about this very idea. This is more specifically, the article itself, a look at a book called Death by Video Games, subtitled Danger, Pleasure, and Obsession on the Virtual Front Line by Simon Parkin. That's a hell of a title. By Simon Parkin. It showcases some of the more interesting societal effects and weird tales in the world of gaming culture, and it spends its time, for a lot of it, I haven't read it, but based on what the article is saying in the interview with Mr. Parkin, talking about how, there's a bunch of weird shit that happens, like Gamergate happened, and people dying from playing games too long. Taiwan, chill out, dude. Like, Taiwan needs to chill. Like 3 or 4 people died in the past couple of years just from like spending, going on like 3-day marathons because they're, you could say addicted to a game, but you could also say just like really obsessed with playing. Right?
Stop eating?
I guess.
I don't.
Maybe how do you poop?
I don't get it. Like, your body tells you what you need to do. I mean, sometimes when I'm playing video games, I do forget to eat if I'm like binging on it or something.
Right.
But eventually I go to sleep because I just get tired. I don't know.
Is it a fear of missing out kind of thing? Like if I don't do this thing in this set amount of time, I'm somehow like missing out on what this experience is offering? Like
It's I think it's it's like a cultural thing because most of the deaths in Taiwan were in internet cafes, right?
Right.
And for us, like our idea of internet cafes in the West is like, it's a place you go to, I don't know, check your email or some
Starbucks.
shit if you're a businessman. Yeah, exactly.
right.
Or you bring your laptop and hang out for like an hour. But like over there in Asia or like wherever, it's more, I guess it's kind of frowned upon to do like gaming and shit in the comfort of your own home.
Really?
So people go to internet cafes so they can, distance themselves from that pressure and, just do all their enjoyment over there.
Cut loose a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes
So
too much, clearly.
It might be like an addiction to just trying to
being
stay
social
away from that
in a way.
pressure.
Also,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
you're saying like you're going out and be social playing video games at these internet cafes
I
a little
wouldn't
bit,
say
maybe.
it's social.
Well,
I wouldn't say I mean, it says social as, I don't know, as playing a game of League. Like you'll
Talk to people through a
probably-
headset or
you'll
whatever.
talk this-
Yeah.
You'll probably like be angry at someone or be salty at someone in a League game.
Specifically
But
because
like,
it's League, probably, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's not like a very social interaction going to an internet cafe because there are people there that are all have common interests, but they're not really talking to each other.
Yeah, they don't realize the guy next to them died.
Yeah,
right. Well, there was
Or is
the article
dying.
talks about like the one that got like they thought he was asleep for like 9 hours, and then they finally like nudged him, and they realized that he had passed away. Like it's pretty. I mean, these are all like fringe things. This is not like a rampant, pandemic of video gamer deaths or anything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But specifically like this book and Simon talk specifically about kind of like the weird fascination that we all have with it, and like entertainment that is consumable and that's literally designed to be that way, right? Like games are supposed to be enjoyed. You want to spend a bunch of time there. It's the escapism. It's all of that, right? But there are designers out there, for better or for worse, that like they want you to spend time in that world, and so they take certain measures to design things and mechanics, a game loop, if you will, that will support and encourage you to keep playing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, that's the ultimate goal. I mean, keep playing my game.
Yeah, right. Or at least spending money if you're into that microtransaction type thing, or at least like get your money's worth from the $60 title that you just bought. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So fair enough. But I think we're gonna see examples here where it's like straight up predatory, right? Like, or does it literally like unconsciously take advantage of people that maybe have some sort of like compulsion to collect all the things in a game and therefore can't stop playing until they do? Or I mean, again, is this more just about like kind of an examination of these like kind of outlying stories? Like, I don't know.
It's hard. Like when I think of like free to play games that have microtransaction, it feels very predatory in a way. Like maybe it's just the way they present it. I do understand that a lot of these companies are relying on these microtransactions to be able to continue supporting their game. Mm-hmm. But then you also have these companies that make like $100 million a day. It's not $100 million, it's like $1 million a day or something.
Sure.
And that feels a little excessive sometimes. Like they're just making a ton of money off of like a few people, like whales like spending a ton of money on it, on these purchases in game, and it just that feels predatory. But it's where do you find the fine line between predatory and supporting the game? I guess.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And I think maybe he tries to answer that question again. I haven't read the book, but I was kind of fascinated. It's such a general kind of umbrella topic, you know what I mean? Where like, what is it that makes games good? Like, why do we want to play games? And it's all the reasons we've talked about it numerous times on the show: escapism, the obsession, or whatever. Like, what's the longest you ever played a game for in a single sitting, Bernard?
I don't know, probably like 8-ish hours.
8-ish.
Maybe.
Just like, are you like asking like without getting up to do anything else? I mean, I obviously get up. To go to the bathroom
or have a snack or something, use the bathroom, whatever. But like, yeah, like,
can I have a lunch break in between?
Sure.
Then I'd say like an entire Saturday or something. Like I just sat in my room and
like
just
a good
played
like
video
12,
games.
14 hours.
Sure, yeah, why not? I mean, it's okay to binge once in a while on that kind of stuff.
Right. When was the last time you did that?
I don't know, a few weeks ago.
What about you, Bernard? When was that 8-hour session last?
It's probably Civ 5.
Civ 5. So what, like 4 years ago, maybe? Like, are you playing with the expansions or no? Like, God.
Yeah. Every time the expansion comes out, probably sink in like a weekend.
Yeah.
And just,
Oh, yeah, so,
Yeah.
it's just time sink.
It doesn't end. Yeah.
It
You
goes-
excited for the new one?
Yeah, Civ 6, bro. Around the corner.
We'll see. We'll
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's got stylized graphics.
No, yeah, I like the new additions they're adding, but it's hard to tell. With these new
The way I just with not to get off topic, but
Go ahead.
because we all love Civ apparently.
We do.
Yeah. It's like you got to wait an expansion before a Civ game's actually good. Given like Civ 5 was kind of crap when it came up, but then
It wasn't crap, but I think like the expansions definitely made it better.
It was pretty shitty. Like not the game itself, but like it's very buggy and didn't run well. And
Sure.
It got the
fucking Gandhi, man, every time.
What a dick.
What?
But I mean, isn't it all releases with like day one patches and stuff? Like
I'm not talking about like a day one patch. I'm talking about the game wasn't really playable until the first expansion came out.
It was playable, but I enjoyably so. Like I think Civ kind of, at least Civ 5 became the game I think we all wanted it to be, with the combination of like 2 or 3 of those awesome expansions, right? Like it was a nice compliment, like icing on the cake, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I don't. For everything that's gone on, like it's nice to see that somebody's kind of actually asking these kind of interesting questions, and that people are talking about them. I think like within our own little bubble of being game developers, like we talk about this stuff kind of like frequently, right? But it's always interesting to kind of like step out of that bubble, be objective, and kind of like, how does the rest of the world look at this? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Is it a world of angry moms that are like, you know, you're rotting your brain by playing video games too much or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, put down the mouse, put down the controller. Go outside, you fucking lazy shit.
Well, that thing. But in the article, they gave an example of that or something. The guy tried to explain to a mom a little bit about.
Yeah.
The mom came to, or she was just like, I think asking a general question about, hey, my 22-year-old plays video games all the time. What should I do? It's like, well, he's a 22-year-old. He should make his own decisions and fail on his own.
right.
And figure it out. But playing video games a lot isn't inherently bad. Like, yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah. And that's like, and we're seeing more and more like these studies and like research that's showing that like, you know, there's some sort of cognitive improvement through playing games. Like your critical thinking skills become, enhanced to a certain degree. People are using it in simulations all the time. Like the same ideas that go into video games, like doctors are using that stuff to train to be surgeons and all that other kind of stuff. Like there's all these benefits, I guess you could say, you know what I mean, to a certain degree, and that, you know, we're kind of shucking this idea that like entertainment, especially in the form of video games, is like a harmful thing. And look, anything can be harmful if you do it
too much
for 3 days straight.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Especially chess.
Right. Well, he makes that reference too. But what's cool about it is that he draws that parallel to other forms of entertainment, like television or radio or whatever. Like anytime there's something relatively new, and games have been around long enough now that we're kind of like, I feel like we're on the kind of tail end of this argument or this like talk.
I think we're getting there. I think it's hard for us to say though, because we're so engulfed in it that it is. Yeah. You go someplace else in the country and they probably have a completely different view on video games.
That's probably true. Yeah, or the world for that matter. But yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately though, to some degree, like we have to understand that like video games it's still a relatively young field as opposed to like television, movies, or books for that matter. You know what I mean? Or chess. But at some point, like we're gonna get to, you know, like obviously moderation in all things. Everybody calm the fuck down. Like it's okay to play games once in a while. In fact, like more and more people are doing. Like the advent of the smartphone, like everybody plays a game of some sort to some degree, right? At some point during their day or week, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. There's not necessarily an answer here. I just think it's really interesting. Like, especially from a design perspective, like, are we literally going out of our way to prey upon people, or are we just trying to make something that's engaging and fun? You know what I mean? Like, because that's all it is. Like, games are about fun, right? Like fundamentally. So
that's debatable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, okay. So to go back on your previous point, like where you think we're at the tail end of viewing games as something that can be harmful to, you know, society or individuals.
Right.
I think we're actually more closer to the start of it.
Really?
With the introduction of things like VR and, you know, how far like photorealistic graphics have come to creating like immersive environments. Games, as much as they are compared to like, you know, different mediums like movies and TV shows and novels, they're and chess, they have a really different relationship with people because it's an interactive medium. So as opposed to like a movie or book, you can't act with that medium and expect a reaction.
Right, you just like consume it and digest it. Right,
never read a Goosebumps. So, I mean, like,
choose your own adventure. What about that?
Sorry,
there's exceptions to all the rules. I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely a unique relationship that games have created as, you know, as the mediums become more popular. So yeah, I think there's still, you know, a lot of time and a lot more games to be revealed or to be created for us to more fully understand like how this relationship should be handled, or maybe it should be regulated, or what rules should be put in place for certain design rules for game design and things like that.
I think what you're saying is right. It's definitely. I can't fucking remember.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Take your time. Deep breath.
You're not the drug you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's odd that it's such a repeat of everything that, like, there's always this fear mongering about this like new medium that comes out, and
Right. Somebody gets scared. Yeah.
Video games is suffering from that, but it's not unique to video games. It's happened with like every new thing that's come up before. Like, I was in the article, they're talking about like reading novels, it like causes your wife to
Right.
leave you, and you get
Yeah, like in
leave your
1800s.
kids. It's like
Yeah.
playing chess rots the brain and wastes your intellectual power. It's like people.
No, it's an exercise, just like anything else. Yeah.
It's just exercising your brain. Dungeon and Dragon is dungeon worship or demon worship. and
Devil worship. Yeah.
It's
People get scared, man. People get scared. They fear change. You know.
I don't know.
I guess I do too. The older I get, the more I fear it. I want shit to just kind of stay the way it was.
it just happens again and again, the same thing, and I feel like people should just take a step back and realize that, okay, I need to look at this a little more objectively and see what's actually happening. Like, I don't know.
No, I think you're right, and I think, and to a certain extent, like, you could even, not to sound like a whiny bitch, but like oh, media is like demonizing games all the time. It's all we hear about is how, like, when every time there's a school shooting, is like that school shooter had like copies of Call of Duty and like Doom or whatever on his like desktop. You know what I mean? You're like, dude, calm down.
Yeah, he also had access to like weapons. I mean, that's
Right,
the main
like,
thing, I guess.
the guys from CD Projekt Red gave a copy of Witcher 3 to Obama as like a celebration of like Eastern European, like, this is what the stuff that we can make. You know what I mean? This is the stuff that we do. Isn't that cool? You know, doesn't mean Obama's going to turn around and like shoot up a school. You know, it's not going to happen. Like, everybody needs to but the media does sometimes it does a disservice, because that portrayal of games as a harmful thing or as responsible for these horrible occurrences is not really the same thing as, say, like, why don't they give the same kind of airtime or shrift to the studies and the research that comes out that says, like, oh, games are actually really good for you. You know what I mean? Or can be. You know what I mean? In certain doses.
I
So,
feel like I've been seeing a lot of articles like that.
especially
like,
lately.
yeah,
but
I
that's
don't-
also because we're constantly doing research for the show and everything else.
I don't watch the news really that much,
Right.
at all. The only time I see it is like when it's on, when I come downstairs and Joe has it on.
Right.
So I don't know if they're still fear mongering these games and everything, or video games. They're still
I think it's
blaming
getting
games and
less,
everything.
but yeah.
But what I have seen all the time is like so much like video games are good for you. Video games are good for you. It's like
They're changing the way schools work based on like incorporating like curriculums based around video games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's Minecraft Education Edition or whatever it is. Like whatever you want to call it. Shit. We played Oregon Trail as kids. You know what I mean? Like all those typing simulators and to learn how to use a computer. Like, those were all gamified. All that stuff. So
yeah. It's a weird argument to say video games are bad for you, because I mean, it's just thinking in different ways, and it's creating elasticity for your brain to think, accommodate different situations.
Right.
Like, you're solving new problems with every new game you play. It's just, how can that be bad? It's not even just video games. Like, if you were to do some other medium that allows you to like solve new problems in different ways, it's the same thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, yes, it's just a different type of exercise. It's a new form of multimedia that allows people to interact with it, specifically, like to your point, Bernard. And, the more that happens, the more things are going to get discovered, the more things are going to transpire. And obviously, all it takes is like one bad apple to ruin it for everybody. And we've seen that happen in multiple cases.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah, you're right. Games are still here. They're not going anywhere. In fact, if anything, it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. You know what I mean? Like, if I thought about where I was as a kid playing like Super Mario on an NES and what it is now, like, that's crazy. It's madness, the fact that it's come along the way it has. You know what I mean? So, and it informs a bunch of other media. Like, obviously IPs get tossed around, and there's Harry Potter games and there's Star Wars games and all this other stuff. But it's like, graphical representations in games, like, that informs a lot of the way that movies get made for like CG and stuff like that. Like, it's and then there's video game movies like Warcraft and stuff.
Or Pixels.
Or Pixels, right? Exactly. All right. Any final thoughts, Bernard, before we move on?
No.
Okay. Good. Let's wrap that up nicely then.
Yeah. Number 2.
So, No Man's Sky is still dominating the news. I feel like it kind of took the place of Pokemon Go for the past couple of weeks. So well, at least we're talking about something different now. But and everyone, and I mean everyone, has an opinion on it. The game specifically. No matter how you feel about the game, there's been a specific development that opens up a pretty important discussion. So, just how big is the gap between players and makers, and like the way that the makers understand their game for what it is, and how it changes over a development cycle, and the way that players often that have no experience in game dev, for better or for worse, often kind of take development videos from like 2 years ago and take it at their word. Like, why isn't it that? Well, shit changes, all right? But we'll get to that in a second. A Redditor upset that No Man's Sky didn't have multiplayer made a specific complaint that it would only take one person 1 week to add multiplayer to the game. So why didn't they just do it? Let's all sigh and shake our heads and see if we can make some sense out of this. It's using this one guy's comment, and I don't want to like shit on this guy too much, but I do think that it needs to be understood. Well, the issue that it's addressing is that like what you see during a game's development and what you get when it ships is often very different, and that's because anytime you're making something creative or that takes time and changes and iterates and everything else, like especially in games. Shit changes every single day. Every day. You know what I mean?
I think the guy's tweet response to this was pretty much perfect. What was it? It's like, this really like showcases what's missing, or like the lack of communication, or
well, just there's a giant like the gap that exists between players and makers.
And that's not necessarily their fault. Like, we need to maybe get that out there a little bit more also. But it's also not necessarily easy stuff to understand sometimes. Like some of trying to explain like how the math behind collision works is not like something you can just like brain up on in a Twitter post.
Sure.
So it's just
how much time you got.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like, you want us to explain this, or do you want us to make fun games for you to play? I guess. But that's kind of like a trade off. Like you gotta balance that. So.
If there was a guy that could put multiplayer in any game by himself in a week, that dude would be the richest dev in the world. Like he'd just be jet setting. Like Orion's like, oh yeah, I'll just take care of this for you guys, no problem. Like he'd be God effectively. You know what I mean? It'd be amazing. But
I spent this week just making guns make sure they shoot properly over the network on clients and stuff. Like just guns. Like no other part of the game at all. Just make sure when I shoot a gun on the client, the server tells all the other clients that I'm shooting a gun, and the server shoots the gun, and and
you have to do that for every component that is linked to multiplayer.
Yeah, I'll have to do that for everything. Like that's not just like what I did for guns.
It's not just guns. It's
like I can use similar ideas that I use there on other stuff,
because that's how coding works. But yeah.
But it's still it's not simple.
It's not trivial by any stretch of the imagination, right? So what's the problem here? Really, is it that the devs do not communicate things appropriately? They're not apologizing. They don't fix them fast enough. Like that takes time too, right? But again, like No Man's Sky's been in development for what, 5-6 years? You know what I mean? It took a long time for this game to come out, and what they were showing at conferences years ago clearly isn't the same as what it is now. There's a lot of similarities, sure, and the talk of multiplayer and all this stuff is one thing, but like these guys worked really hard, and I'm not trying to like jump on Hello. Yeah, there's only like 15 guys at that studio. Like, and I'm not trying to sit here and be like, you guys are all wrong for hating on No Man's Sky. If you don't like that game, fine, but there needs to be a certain amount of understanding about what kind of work goes into this. You know what I mean? Which is a lot of studios go out of their way to try and be as transparent as possible about how development goes. If they can, based on whatever publishing deal or development deal that they have, to let their fans or potential buyers know what's going on. And when people get upset about this kind of shit, it makes me crazy, because they clearly have no idea how it works. Like they want it to be this thing, right? Whatever experience, it doesn't have to be No Man's Sky. It could be any game. You know what I mean? They have a very clear vision of what it's supposed to be, an expectation. You know what I mean? And if those expectations aren't met, it's like a fucking freight train just hit them in the wallet. You know what I mean? Like they can't reconcile the fact that it's like, oh, well, it's not what I want it to be. Well, then go fucking make it yourself. You know what I mean? Make the thing that you want to see. Ultimately, like, and I sound salty, and I guess I am a little bit, but I don't know. Somebody, Bernard, tell me why you can't just do multiplayer in a week. Why doesn't that make sense?
I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to look on this article, I guess, favorably, because I understand, like, the point being made is like, yeah, sure, the person who made this comment doesn't have information, or doesn't have the correct information about, like, what it takes to develop.
Not to mention, regardless, even if he was like trolling, right? Like, so take that off the table altogether, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not Exactly. I mean, it feels like you have to be on a high horse to be like, oh, well, you're completely wrong for making this assessment. Like this guy, he just doesn't know, you know?
I
Like, and sure, he's making an assumption that's wrong, but like how harshly can we fault the person who doesn't know for making, a wrong assumption?
oh, I agree.
Very harshly.
I also think-
clearly, but I mean, no, but you're right. Like maybe I'm too close to it. You know what I mean? Like because we're in the industry, all of us. You know what I mean? Like to some degree, like it strikes a chord with us to, and so try. Okay, I'll take a step back then, Bernard. I'll try and be more objective.
I think this also stems a lot. Like maybe this comment also came from like the frustration with like not getting what he wanted from the game. Like I don't want to go into what No Man's Sky like promised and didn't deliver, or what they did. And I mean,
Regardless.
the whole thing. Besides that, it's like he was obviously disappointed with what he got, and all I can say is that like maybe do a little more research like on what it takes to make a game, what the game studio's made of, and what they're actually trying to put out. I guess I don't know. It's
Sure.
and sometimes I blame publishers a lot also because they put a cap on the kind of information we can put out there to explain what we're trying to make to games. So like we can't talk about all this kind of stuff.
Certainly,
so it's,
yeah.
maybe it's not necessarily No Man's Sky's fault. Like maybe it is. I don't know, somebody else that was pulling the strings or something that said you can't talk about this kind of thing.
Well, maybe, maybe, but at the same time, it's also like whether or not they can talk about it or not. Like the veil between how games get made and the people that play them is getting thinner and thinner, right? But that gap is still the same difference because some people just want to play games, they don't care how it gets made, and they just want it to be a certain way. They want it to be this thing that they have this, and this, unfortunately, as much as I want to keep talking about games in general, this is a very specific thing to No Man's Sky because the hype train on this thing was so big, it was out of their control. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, like no matter how good that game could be amazing. I have it on my docket.
I said that No Man's Sky was the next Star Citizen.
And it very could, but that's it. Like the hype train is so big that no matter how good it is, it's not going to be as good as the hype train wants it to be. You know what I mean? So no matter what, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Just let it be the thing that it is. You know, and if you do that, play it and do not like it, I will respect that opinion way more than one that is an uneducated one. And you could say this about No Man's Sky, about games in general, or any politics, for instance. You know what I mean? Like if you don't do your research and then you start spouting off, like you're going to say something stupid eventually because you don't have the knowledge. And now I'm not sitting here saying that like you all have to go out there and start researching games more. That's not the point. The point is it's like just think about what you're saying.
Well, it's just when No Man's Sky went gold like a few months ago, I remember looking up and talking to my friend. Was like, "Hey, No Man's Sky went gold. Like, you guys want to play this? Maybe?" It's like, "Sure, let's do some research on it." So what I did was I started looking into what the game's actually going to be. It's like, because they're hyping up. Oh, it's going to be this giant space game where you can fly around in ships and shoot shit and go on planets and explore things. Like, okay, what do they mean? And I looked up. It's like, oh, it's an exploration game where you may never run into your friend at all because there's nothing like that.
It's just so big that
it's like that may not be for me. Like you got to do your research on what these games are and what they're trying to deliver and the size of the team that they're making. Like they can't make this grandiose fucking game that's going to be like.
But they kind of did, at least from a scope thing. Like
no, the game is technically impressive. It's cool.
Sure,
like the procedural generation is awesome. You get little cow monster things,
dog stuff. Yeah, well, absolutely.
I mean,
I haven't played it yet. It's literally next on my list, and I'm waiting for it any day to show up right now.
But I did some research, and it's not for me. Like I didn't want to play this. Like okay, it's exploration, but then what? Like it just wasn't.
I think for as many people that are playing, I'm sure there's a ton of people that are enjoying it and that think it's good and are willing to let it be just like this chill. Like I'm going to run around, like do the resource grind and go to another planet and check that shit out too and see what's up. You know what I mean? And occasionally run into some cool stuff or do some story missions, and that's great. But I think it is kind of hard to reconcile the fact that this game is so big from just what is it, 18 quintillion planets or whatever. And if you don't have a mechanics set that is big enough to take advantage of that kind of scope of just the size of the game itself, then yeah, it's going to feel a little bit limiting. You know what I mean? It's going to feel very overwhelming in the size, and you're not going to feel very powerful as a player. So that's. But again, I haven't played it. Looking forward to it, and hopefully that'll happen. But I don't know, man. Like basically what this comes down to for me, and again, like it doesn't just apply to No Man's Sky or games in general. It applies to everything. It's like if you want to have an opinion about something, you're entitled to your opinion, no matter what it is, no matter how educated or uneducated about a subject, any subject. whatever it is. But you can still be wrong. You know what I mean? And specifically speaking, it takes a lot longer to put multiplayer in any fucking game, let alone No Man's Sky. So I don't know. Not to harp on that point too much. Again, Bernard, I'm trying to be objective, taking a step back.
Right. Yeah,
But-
I mean, it's No Man's Sky has definitely, I guess, raised a few questions about like how front-facing a developer should be, especially if it's front-facing, I guess, in the wrong way, where you make, you've released information that might not be entirely accurate about your game, or, it's sort of muddled in terms of like whether it's.
It was kind of hard to get a straight answer. Like reading articles.
It's like you said, like you did a lot of research on the game, like, oh, it's an exploration game. But like even like when I looked into the game, like it was like there's a lot of the information about the game, like it's just not apparent. It's like what you do in the game, like that wasn't even like a stone's like
Yeah.
it wasn't cemented.
Up
People
until the
didn't
day
know.
of release, like it was super. Nobody knew what you did in this game. They just knew it was really fucking big.
Right, exactly. And I think like making vague statements about, I guess, even like the principal feature set of your game, like like things like multiplayer. It's a very strange place, it's a very, very strange thing to do, to have those statements out there and then not have them like be back. Like it's very.
I understand what you're saying. They gave. I didn't want to get into it too much and anything, but they were being very political with the statements they made about the game.
Sure.
They're like, oh, it's not really a multiplayer experience. Like, what does that mean? Like, can I not see the people I'm playing with or something? Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, it's not really multiplayer. Not really. Like, so it's kind of a multiplayer experience. And that's what the entirety of everything I read about the game was. It was just kind of vague, like you said. It was just.
And this goes back to, and I think you guys are right, and I'll play devil's advocate for for just a second. I'm going to try, Bernard, all right? Just bear with me. Is there a way that like if you're going to come out as a studio and 2 or 3 years in the past say that this is what your game is going to be, or like here's some things you can maybe expect, that's fine. But if you decide to change that, you should probably let people know that things have changed. You know what I mean? So maybe Hello Games like could have communicated better, but who knows under what restrictions they were. And like at the time of this thing, like the publisher could have been like, "Hey, this is what you're going to say." You know what I mean?
No, yeah, that's what I think happened, honestly, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. But like in my opinion, like if they were really worried about this hype train, which they said before the game actually came out, it's like, hey, you guys are really hyped for this game. You guys should chill a bit. You need to be very specific of what your game is, so people can understand what they're trying to be hyped about. Like,
Sure.
So that
They have to
people
contextualize it.
Yeah, so people don't go out and buy a game that they don't want to play. They like. Sure, people are hyped, but do you want to get money from people that don't want to play your game? Yeah, I guess
Exactly.
and that goes kind of back to the other topic. But
I think there's also like I guess percentage of like internal hype, like just between like I guess publisher and developer. Where,
oh yeah, they get
like even to the point of you print copies on discs and you have them in boxes, like your box art says the game has multiplayer,
Right, and then throw
And
stickers
then,
on it.
and then you have to put stickers on it to say like it doesn't. Like I feel like that's some like last second like bullshit that went on. Like if someone was fucking like pulling out their hair and being like, oh, what the fuck do we do?
Right, because I imagine that there's a row of 15 developers at Hello Games standing in front of an assembly line of boxes, like at 2 a.m, slapping those stickers on, being like, "This is fucked up." Like, yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, who fucking put this on the box? God damn it, you know what I mean? But no, it's just an interesting thing. Like, anytime you make something creative, like you want people to like it, you want people to enjoy it, and it sucks when. I guarantee you the amount of people that are playing this game, and it's a lot, the vast majority of them are probably enjoying their experience. You know what I mean? But the shit that makes news and the shit that like kind of like that we're talking about right now is like this kind of weird focus on some of the negative aspects. Like they shipped a fucking cool thing, something that had never been done before, and with a studio of 15 people. That's fucking rad. Like that's really fucking cool. Like years of their life like devoted to this thing, and people should appreciate that for what it is. I'm not saying you have to like the game, but honor the fact that like a lot of effort, like they did this. Yes, as a player, you were paying money to take part in it, but just let it be what it is, man. Like don't try and put your own expectations on something. Like you're ultimately with a hype thing that was as big as it was for this game, you are destined to be disappointed if you buy into that bullshit. Like it's inevitable. You know what I mean? Just let it be what it is.
yeah.
That's
The
it.
game definitely sets precedent, and I think like a few years from now, like we'll see the after effects of No Man's Sky's release, and like like other developers will they'll take out little parts of No Man's Sky and then implement it in their own games.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of like see the evolution of like what it started. I mean, No Man's Sky is already like an evolution of like things that already started from like Minecraft and things like that, or
Yep.
like that survival genre. But I guess the procedural generation that No Man's Sky did for being able to create something as expansive as a galaxy or multiple galaxies, it'll be definitely interesting to see how that is taken in the future.
It's cool, actually. Before we move on, speaking directly to that point, Bernard, it's a good call. The guy Ben Kuchera at Polygon, who wrote the article that we're referencing, talking about the specific Redditor post and then this gap between makers and players, did a follow-up piece talking about how No Man's Sky is the new Destiny, in the sense that like when Destiny was released, it had the same kind of problem where it was like, this is very different than what we thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? I think we had more details about Destiny. It just like wasn't as much as we thought we were getting for $60.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But like a year from now, he makes the point where like I bet you No Man's Sky is a different game a year from now than it is right now.
I believe that. I mean, it definitely could be.
Yeah, and I was like, and that's a cool thing, and that's more indicative of what's kind of cool about this is that like there's these games out there now, and if they're big enough, they will be supported long after their initial release. And if they're listening to their community, and Bungie does this a lot with their community, they listen very, very, very closely to what their community says. And I'm sure that Sean Murray and all the guys at Hello Games are going to do the same thing with this and be like, okay, if this is something we want, that's what we're going to work on. We just released, and he said himself, they just put out a patch today for PC to kind of help with some of the issues there, but he's like, we're all focused on like customer support right now, and then we'll turn around and start focusing on adding new features and updating things. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to see where it goes. I want to see what it is right now, specifically, just so I can see the difference in the long run, just like I did with Destiny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Could be cool.
But then, like, the gold edition's going to come out, and you have to buy that one instead, or something.
Yeah. Well, marketing and all that shit will always rear its ugly head to some degree.
And the DLC, the paid DLC that they said never was going to happen, and whatever.
Right. It's devs being devs, man.
I know.
Nobody's right or wrong here, really, in the long run. But if you're going to say one thing and you walk it back, then change your tune and let people know, and don't assume that you can do multiplayer in a week in a game, because you can't. But if you can, let me know, because I'd like to hire you. So that'd be great. Anyway, we'll move on from here. But that was, close the gap, guys. Makers, developers. Let's come together and be happy that shit gets made and that we have fun stuff to play.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that's good.
Number 3.
Is it me, or is the thought of using monetized video games in casinos? I don't know. I'm not sure how I should feel about it. Regardless, it's happening. Skill-based games will be set along random ones, and you can fight zombies for jackpots or just play blackjack like a normal person. Yet, I don't know. Somehow, I don't know. I understand. I'm not sure how to feel about it. I'm concerned. I'm kind of happy too. It'd be cool to go to a casino and, I don't know, play Time Crisis for money or something. I don't know, whatever it is. But is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I need you guys to help me kind of sort this out. The fact that casinos are appropriating video games has been kind of happening for a while to a certain degree, but now that they're like full on being like, oh, here's this zombie shooter game.
Well, do you remember when like people tried to like outlaw arcades because they're basically kids were gambling away their coins to like
get tokens to buy shitty stuffed animals or whatever?
I mean, arcades were basically gambling arenas already, and now they're trying to bring it to.
I guess I didn't think
and now
about it
they're
that
giving
way,
it to the big guys, and they're gonna fucking take all your money. So I don't know.
Right.
Like I like this idea. They're trying to appeal to a younger audience, I guess.
But you can't gamble until you're 18.
I don't like the explanation. They're going to say, hey, skill-based games are going to come to it.
We're going to monetize that shit.
And they're going to monetize skill-based games.
With monetary rewards.
Yeah, to replace random ones. And the only way that they could stop some one person, I guess, from like running away with every like skill-based game in there, like some guy who's really good at the game, is by throwing in some random shit to like fuck him over at some point. Like,
Well, maybe. Like poker players go to casinos to play.
Poker players are playing against other players. You got to think blackjack. People can play blackjack,
but they're playing against the house.
And they're playing against the house, and you start counting cards because they're really skill based. You get kicked out of the casino. So what? Are people going to get like really good at these games and get kicked out of the casino because they're playing? They're fair enough. Killing all the zombies. I guess.
Yeah, they monetize Dota to the point where you can go to a Las Vegas casino or something and be like, but I'm a pro Dota. Like I just won $9 million because I'm a member of Wings at the International. I'm going to go to Vegas right now and be like, I'm going to bet on black and double my money because I'm awesome at this game. It's a skill based thing. Like I don't know. It's weird.
I think this is cool. I think it's going to be really niche though. Like I don't know. Like, it's
I think it might take a little while to take off.
Yeah.
I think I agree. I mean, you're not going to see the old biddies like with the plastic shotgun shooting zombies. You know what I mean? They're going to keep
hope
pulling.
so.
They're going to keep pressing the slot machine button. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think, Bernard?
I don't think it's going to be a niche market at all. I mean, if you've looked at like CS:GO betting and seeing like how that's been such like a growing, or it was like this, this growing audience before it got shut down, I think there's definitely a market for skill-based games with an element of casino like odds and gambling involved.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a snake eating its own tail eventually, where a lot of elements from casinos were being derived into more casual games or more hardcore games, and then now casinos are adopting those games back into the casino.
I'm not sure how to feel about that. I don't know. I had this weird. I've actually never been to Vegas. Like, I've been to Laughlin, Nevada. I've been around there, but like I've never had that whole experience. And I feel like if I went to Vegas, the last thing I want to do is play video games. Like I want to go and I want to put a suit on and go to a blackjack or a baccarat table and do my best James Bond impression and like get that traditional Vegas experience, not do the thing that I could do at home. But like, yes, the enticing thing here is that it's for money now. You know what I mean? Like, you can bet $5, play 30 seconds of a game, and if you do well enough, then you make money back. Like, how does this work? Like, well,
that's what I'm curious about. How are they going to make the money back?
Yeah, it's rigged. It has to be rigged. It's like the rule of Vegas or any casino is that the house fucking wins. The only way to win at a casino is own the casino. You know what I mean? Like, effectively. So I don't know.
I think it's definitely just going to be loosely skill based, where like there's like you're doing more than just I don't know, putting a coin in a slot machine, but
right. It's not. It can't be a reflex thing, right?
There's definitely going to be an element of odds and statistics stats will be definitely not in your favor.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a money sink. Even though, like, even if you have I guess a higher amount of skill, I'm sure the amount of money sink for you would be lesser than someone who's not as good at the game. But it's definitely going to be there's definitely going to be random chance. There's definitely going to be an element of RNG involved where it's not, whereas skill takes definitely a lesser percentage. Its skill's not going to be like the major factor in you being successful at the game.
Sure. Yeah. Does it become like a hyper microtransaction thing? Like, you're playing this zombie shooter or something, and like, oh, you can, if like you put $1, like slap $1 in the thing from your credit account right now and get like double damage. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get that $1 back, but you can potentially increase your winnings.
I could imagine some kind of thing like let's imagine you're going through House of the Dead. What is it? House of the Living Dead. And you're shooting everything, and you're like, oh, you just died. Put another $1 in for another life or another life, so you can like go on a little bit further. And this is just exactly how arcade machines work, I guess. And if you finally get to the end, maybe you can get a little bit of a payout or something.
Right.
But where's the jackpot then? Like, I guess you get to the end. If it's really skill-based, then people will be able to get to the end every time, unless they, I don't know. And like those House of the Living Dead games that were so deterministic, though, so it's hard to compare that one.
That's true. That's tough. But I have this weird like vision of like games like Far Cry 3 or Red Dead Redemption, where like literally there's segments of the game where you can go in and play poker. Like, you go to a casino to play a video game to play poker. Which is weird because like, as much as like you can script certain things where like no matter what you win a hand in like the first one because that's like the tutorial hand or whatever, but at some point it ends up being randomized, right? So I guess it's not a skill game anymore if you're doing that. I don't know.
I hope it's VR where you're in a casino.
Right, you go to a casino to put a VR helmet on to be in a casino. That's great. That's pretty funny.
I don't know what the title's going to be, but I feel like that'd be really good. A good picture for the episode.
That's not bad at all, actually. Yeah. Oh man, fuck. We'll just call it also chess. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and that's
yeah. They have chess. He's played chess in VR,
right? But you can literally play because you're wearing a VR helmet in the casino. You can literally play, Kaspersky or Bobby Fischer for money. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like sitting there as a digital representation in front of you.
Yeah,
that sounds fucking crazy.
It's hard to imagine that. Like you said, like I like going to Vegas, putting on a suit, playing some blackjack, watching the people walk by.
Right, people watching for sure in Vegas. I imagine
that's the best thing to do in Vegas. Everything else costs money, but. I don't know. Bernard, you spend much time in Vegas?
No,
Have
Never?
you been there?
I've been there twice.
I assume you've been down to like Atlantic City though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So have you ever like sat down at the table and like tried your luck, whatever?
Wasn't of age when I was there.
Oh,
I guess
okay.
most of it was spin a slot machine.
Fair enough. All right.
I was just there.
Why can't we just play video poker and have weird digital themes for slot machines? Like that's where it's at right now. Can't we just leave it there? Like I don't know, man. There's something very wrong about to me, and maybe this is just like Grumpy Joe being like I'm an old man. And I don't understand weird change. Like we
Well,
were talking about before.
this
Like
is-
video games and betting should be mutually
This is why I,
very very much apart. Like
this is why I say it's going to be. I think it might be a little niche, but maybe not as niche as like niche stands for. Like not as
not as niche as niche.
yeah.
Okay.
I feel like when I picture this, I picture some, and I hope this doesn't sound too racist. I picture some Korean arcade.
It's an excellent preface.
Korean or Japanese arcade where it's really popular. A lot of kids are in there playing these games. You can't have kids betting in Vegas, so that's a problem. That's the first problem. But and then that's in like some side room while everybody else is out playing like blackjack.
Okay.
So I picture like the movie theater. You go to the movie theater, everybody's going to see movies, but then you got this little arcade over there where everybody's playing the game.
Right.
And I don't know, like it doesn't. It feels like a great idea, but I don't see it fitting in there yet. I don't know.
Oh, I think you had it right. I think it's about attracting a younger audience. You know what I mean? Because maybe there's a certain parts of we keep referencing Vegas, but there's so many places where this would work that have casinos.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. You know what I mean? You know, here and abroad, whatever. But I'm like when I think of casino, like especially around here in like Seattle area, there's a bunch of casinos. Like the Indian reservations have them and stuff like that. And 9 times out of 10, when you go to them, I actually haven't been to one, but when I lived in upstate New York, there was one as well, and it was like that. The demographic of clientele was definitely like middle aged to elderly. You know what I mean? That was the majority of it. Or you had this like peppering of young 18-year-old kids that just turned 18, and they're like, "Oh, I can go to a casino now. Like I'm gonna go check that out."
Yeah,
like,
you
I
get
did
one
it,
group
you know?
of people that does that. once in a
Yeah,
while.
absolutely. Like you try it out a couple times, see what it's up, and then you lose your paycheck, and you're like, "Fuck this shit." You know what I mean? Like, or you double down and be like, "I'm going to be a professional gambler," and good luck. But maybe this is absolutely the kind of thing like to pull in the younger audience, and I think that's kind of like where you were right.
Did you ever play? Did you ever have a PSP? Either of you guys?
Yeah, I had I had PSP, like the original PSP when like Spider-Man was out.
Do you remember the game Crisis Core? Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core?
No.
That game, it reminded me. It just reminded me of this because there is literally slots going at the top of the fights when you're playing. So you're going around, you're slashing Kingdom Hearts style,
Right.
And then
Like real-time combat.
yeah, real-time combat. These slots are going at the top. It lines up like a few characters, and suddenly you have this special move you can
So what determines I mean, I assume it's a slot machine, so it's quote unquote random. But
Yeah,
like,
no, it's constantly
How do
just-
you trigger it? Like,
No, it's constantly
Constantly
going.
rolling.
Like it rolls, it stops, you don't get anything, it rolls again. You get a lineup, you perform this ultimate move, and then you slice all the bad guys up, and you win the round.
so your entire combat is as much as you're moving
you
around.
can kick ass by yourself.
Okay.
but it's kind of adds
It's
this
like how
fun
the-
little like mechanic to it. As like what if you
Is
played
it fun though? Is it really fun?
It
It
was-
goes by itself.
the game was
Like it is,
fun.
right?
The game was fun by yourself, and you can play by yourself, and you can go through. But I'm imagining, what if you had to put in money to spin the slots to get this ultimate move to get through this one boss battle or something? And it's like,
So I think the main problem, like with the perception here, is like you guys are thinking about like blackjack and like card-based games where you're dealing or interacting with a dealer.
Oh, yeah.
This seems more like an evolution of like a slot machine where slot machines are most like you're never like most percentage like the higher percentage people who play slot machines aren't going to get more money than they put into it, right? It's mostly a money sink.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason people are drawn to it is because it's like a audio visual feedback sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
where you sort of put the money in and then you spin it and then you hear the lights and then you hear the lights and you
Or the sound of a couple coins clinking in the tray. Yeah, sure.
and you hear all that, and like that's sort of the thing you're paying for mostly. Rather, there's also the I guess the
That's true. That
idea
is
of the
true.
reward coming, but like that sort of feedback is sort of the thing that's keeping you there and it's keeping you drawn in. So seeing video games as sort of like a step up above that, where you put money in and then you're sort of you're basically paying money to shoot things and like hear like zombies' heads explode or whatever, and maybe there's an idea of reward in the background, but that's sort of like a long-term goal, and the short term goal is just to experience these things that are in between, and that's sort of like the hidden enjoyment that people get out of slot machines, and I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with these new games.
I mean, if people are getting fun out of it and they're paying money for it, why complain about it? I guess I don't know. I like it.
No, I want people to enjoy themselves, and if you get enjoyment out of like risking money and then potentially earning some, that's cool. Like that's what Vegas is built upon. Whether it be video games or just straight up table games or slot machines, whatever. Like that's
it's better than winning those little Mary Jane like candies or something.
Oh, fuck that.
Fuck. Yeah, here, could I give you the 5 tickets
Who
I
does
just
that?
won?
Especially on like Halloween. Who gives out Mary Jane candies anymore?
I don't know.
Jesus.
It's the only thing I can think of that they gave away at like arcades.
It's not like I'm still like
Pogs or something.
yeah. It's not like I'm still.
Hands.
Oh yeah. All right, fair enough. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old. maybe this means I need to spend more time in Vegas, like the rest of the old people or something. I don't know. It's fucking whatever. All right. Let's move on. Lightning round, everybody. It's something you're all familiar with. You guys are core panelists, but we'll explain it to the audience because maybe you're listening for the first time, and we again appreciate you being here. But here's how the lightning round works. We're gonna take 2 quick topics and give each member of the panel a minute to chime in, uninterrupted for the most part. At the end of each minute, we will award the panelists a quantity of some type of point based on nothing in particular. Our distinguished guest, we'll consider it being Bernard because it's been a while since you've been on. All right, you will award me points as the host. Okay, that's how this will work today. So, not to go back to No Man's Sky again, but we need to get this out of our systems. Motherboard put up an article talking about a very specific aspect of No Man's Sky, and we're going to use it to kick off the lightning round. In the games, there are sentinels, right, that patrol and protect the entire universe. If you do dumb shit, they show up and they chase after you kind of in the same way that like cops do in Grand Theft Auto, right? Drones have been starting to kind of like make headway, obviously in a very general way, but also as a conservation effort. Like if there's like this forest or some sort of site, some sort of protected security needing place, drones are there because they're relatively cheap depending on the type of drone. There's no like manned craft that puts anybody in direct danger. But like if we used, say, a drone to patrol national forests so that, or even like in Africa to patrol like elephant herds so poachers didn't, cut off tusks and stuff, or like somebody's watching that drone's camera so like to go in because, there's a fucking poacher coming, like let's go intercept this guy before he can fuck with this elephant. You know what I mean? Like there's this idea through the Motherboard article that basically kind of hints at the fact that like maybe there's something to this whole idea that drones could be used as a conservationist tool, which I thought was actually really interesting. Like, is this the AI future that we actually need to like protect our, like using a limited amount of it to like protect ourselves from ourselves, like so that we don't fucking destroy, we make drones that, prevent us from building shit that is destroying the planet or something like that. You know what I mean?
Your minute?
I don't know. I'm just trying to introduce the topic. I feel like I've kind of used my minute. Yeah, I did. But I don't know. I'm curious how you guys read the article. I'm curious how you guys felt about this. I thought it was kind of an interesting take on, a future that might come to pass. You know what I mean? So, Bernard, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I'm curious how you felt about this.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever I saw the drones in No Man's Sky and sort of the gameplay videos or the streams that I've seen them, they seem much more like a policing force.
Right.
So whereas this article tries to structure it as like an idea of these tools being used to enforce conservation, I just always thought of them, or I thought of it as a way of as an evolution of police reinforcement or enforcement, where currently we have police officers who will enforce the law by telling us what like things that we can and cannot do, and will arrest us for breaking laws and such. But we sort of evolved this idea of police reinforcement by attaching body cams to them and turning them into sort of like moving cameras around our environment. Mm-hmm. And then I guess if we were to just like sort of think about this and think about how it can evolve from that, like maybe we can take it just from a body cam into a drone that flies above a police officer to track his movements and his surroundings, to give him an advantage and also give the people an idea of like what's going on in the environment. And then if we take that to another evolution, maybe we just take out the police officer entirely, and then we're just stuck with drones, which is kind of the galaxy that No Man's Sky has created, where it's just robots that are going around enforcing laws and such. So I think the use of drones in No Man's Sky is definitely an interesting approach or perspective to how enforcement, not just in conservation but in law, can go in the future.
Okay. I will award you. I gotta think about this a little bit.
One procedurally generated dick monster.
Yes. There you go. Congratulations. Good call, Nick. Good call.
It's like Spore again.
Right. And a drone to watch it with. How's that? All right. Or protect it with, if you will. How's that? Okay. Mr. Golish,
Hey, how's it going?
you have a minute to talk to me about drones as conservationist, a conservationist methodology. How's that? You're
Okay.
welcome.
Thanks. Are we headed this way? I think absolutely, of course. I mean, why? Because drones are cheaper than employing people. Like, if you want people going out on the African elephant reserves to make sure people don't poach them, you're gonna have to pay the money. You got a drone, you don't have to do a damn thing. Like it's just gonna head that way. Like, I mean, it's cheaper labor, it's more effective in some ways, but I don't know. Like,
It's like a secondary automation of the human race.
yeah, I mean, drones are gonna start replacing people's jobs in some ways, but I mean, I don't know.
I feel like people keep saying. I'm sorry. Are you done?
I'm done.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm going to award you one elephant tusk that's 3D printed so that you can have one without poaching an elephant. How's that?
Ebony ivory.
Shout out to Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. That's good. I award you a 3D printed elephant tusk
Oh, thanks.
because it's conservationally.
I hope it's made up of ground up real elephant tusks.
That could be.
Seriously, it literally could be. All right. Here's the deal.
Are you gonna go? I thought you had a turn.
I kind of did, but I tell you, what,
wanna
just
go?
give me 30 seconds. How's that?
All right.
All right. We need to do certain things to protect ourselves from ourselves. Is this a correct thing to do? It's certainly an option. It starts to kind of like infringe on aspects like AI and what's watching us and the whole police state and all this other thing. But like when it comes specifically to the idea of conservation, this is actually a really good idea. Like, why not have things patrolling to make sure that people aren't screwing up the things that we shouldn't be screwing up in the first place? It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too vague, but I only gave myself 30 seconds, so I'm not going to be able to elaborate on it. But
It's okay.
drones protecting like redwood trees, for example, or a beach that needs to not have plastic on it or something like that. That's a good idea. That sounds like a good idea to me. Until people hack it and then it's all fucked. But whatever.
Fucking drones.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Anyway, Bernard, you're allowed to award me points.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to talk about drones taking jobs, didn't you? Or
You can. It's a lightning round, dude. I can talk about whatever I want. I do whatever I want.
It seemed like at the end of Nick's turn, you wanted to talk about just how drones might not be taking our jobs.
They took our gerbs. No, not necessarily. But I think what I was trying to, I guess the point I was trying to make was like, in a limited AI capacity, maybe this is like an all right thing. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there are jobs that like somebody's got to control that AI or at least like watch it, right? And act in some sort of maintenance capacity. Those are jobs. That's good. But at the same time, like, you know, when you have hundreds of thousands of acres to cover, it makes a certain amount of sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Drones are faster, lighter, and cheaper.
So it just sounded like you had something that was, I guess.
yeah, I appreciate that you trying to bring me back around. I've had a couple beers. We're getting to that point in the show when this kind of thing happens. But all right, so what do I get? What's my award?
You get 1 plate 8 with Bernard. in No Man's Sky.
Oh, we're never gonna be. We'll be on the same planet, but we'll never see each other.
Yeah.
It's like Journey almost, where like there's just somebody that walks by you, but you can't really interact with them. You know what I mean? It's fucked up. It's kind of sad. Oh, Bernard, I miss you, buddy. All right. Second lightning round topic. THQ is back, sort of. Nordic Games, a Vienna-based publisher who bought a bunch of the THQ property when THQ went under a few years ago, including the name, has decided to use said name in a recent rebranding of their company. Darksiders, Red Faction, they could all be seeing sequels or remasters in the coming years. I think it wasn't an earnings call, but it was some sort of like, corporate meeting where they basically said we have like 30 titles that's not a precise number. We have like 30 titles in development, like 15 of which people don't know about yet. So like they're a straight up publisher. Like they're going to make some shit happen here. And a lot of stuff that we might see again in the future. But my question to this is, does it make sense to rebrand a company that exists with a failed company's name? Like, does that scare away investors? Does that make like hardcore gamers that know about the history of THQ? Not that they did anything bad, but it's like, people go out of business sometimes. That sucks. The whole South Park thing, like they were a THQ game for a while before it went over to Obsidian and then got released later, but through Ubisoft. You know what I mean? Is this a bad business choice to name your company Nordic THQ just because you own the right to it? Why don't you just be Nordic and release games? I don't know. I'm curious how you guys feel about this. Are you excited about the fact that THQ properties are coming back? I don't know. You got 60 seconds. Tell me how you feel about this. Nick. That was weird.
Ooh, Bernard, what's that? You rumbling?
Yeah, dude. You got a sick muffler or something?
You're asking me about THQ?
Yeah, THQ. How do you feel about it, Nick?
What is THQ? Like, I don't...
It was a development.
They made Darksiders.
Red
Faction.
Red Faction.
Oh, Red Faction.
Yeah.
Red Faction was cool.
I feel like I just said that.
I know you did. Red Faction was cool because you could deform the geometry and stuff. That's all I can really say about it. Like, I don't know.
And the second to last one, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have much to say about this. When this topic was first placed, I thought you were talking about THX. So I wanted that to be my lightning round. It's like.
Everybody listening to this show fucking hates us right now. Yeah.
And then George Lucas' name appears. Lucasfilms. It's like,
that's all right.
That's my minute.
All right. I'm gonna award you a Cantina band that plays a really, because you mentioned George Lucas, a really bad version of a music genre that we won't name here.
It's called Jizz.
Oh God. God damn it. All right. Bernard, you're going to go last. I'm going to go next.
Okay. All right.
All right? Do I think it's a bad idea for a company to the first thing I thought of literally when I don't necessarily associate bad things with the name THQ. I don't. It sucks. Companies go out of business all the time, especially in gaming, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but it does happen relatively frequently. And I think when a company shells out a bunch of money to get the rights to a bunch of those franchises, to that name, to that logo, to all of that stuff, they spent that money for a reason, so it makes a certain amount of sense that they would use it, because otherwise what the fuck did you spend the money for? Okay, fine. But do you really, is it more about resurrecting the idea of this older company or making your own imprint on the gaming industry? So it's kind of a weird identity crisis. I don't know if it's the right move. I guess we'll see. But at the same time, I think about like an energy company turning around being like, yeah, we bought the rights to Enron. Remember that company? You know what I mean? That was kind of cool, right? Until all the horrible shit happened, and then but hey, here's some power. Thanks for paying us for it. I don't know, man. It's weird. I think more often than not, when you have your own company, you want to make your own statement. So it's cool that you get to appropriate and buy, existing titles and keep them alive. And I think that's the cool thing here. Darksiders, Red Faction, and all that other stuff is still might have some life in it, and that's a great thing for a lot of those fans, and including myself. And that's cool. But rebranding with the THQ title, questionable, highly suspect. Bernard, what do I get?
You get two failed publishers.
That's a good one.
I'm literally every other gaming company now. That's all right. Bernard, to kick us off here, as coming back, you are a cheat codes guy, but you know it's not often that we get to have you on. So thank you for being here, first of all. But you will close us out today with the final minute for the lightning round. You have 60 seconds to talk about the good or the bad of rebranding a dead business with your name. Go ahead.
Right. So I guess just start off, like, I don't think none of us in this group were familiar with Nordic Games before reading this article. Maybe we knew that they took ownership of THQ's properties, but other than that, it's kind of, not a lot of information on them. So I think it was a smart move to rebrand themselves into something that people are more familiar with, because THQ is much more.
He's so right. He's so right.
It's a name that people resonate with, and I don't think the majority of the gaming audience is familiar with how publishers go up and down, or like who takes control of who. So if they see a THQ titled publisher that releasing a game that they played before that was also made by THQ, I don't think they'll think anything of it, and they'll just assume it's just business as usual. So I think it's a smart move on their part to deal with the moral implications of or the other like business implications of just taking the name of something and slapping it on yourself and assuming someone's I guess identity can be debated, but on their part, I think this is a smart move.
I'm going to award you a postscript for your name. You are now Bernard Hong, THQ. Instead of Esquire or Senior or the Third, you're just Bernard Hong, THQ. At least you're familiar with other games. I actually think that was actually a really excellent point from a business perspective. Like, it totally makes sense, right? Like, you want something that people can identify with. I think that... Fuck, man. Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Well done. Well done. All right. I think we did it, guys.
Pretty good.
It's 108th episode of this show, which it's actually not accurate, but there's more than that. But that's fine. For all intents and purposes, 108 episodes in the bag. Thank you for being here. Gentlemen, appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking with you. Bernard, well done, sir. Thank you so very much for setting us off with a great lightning round minute there at the end, and for all the insights. Hope New York treats you well and it cools down for you very soon. Nick.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah, right, exactly. Nick, I'll see you at work tomorrow. And thank you for being here, dear listener, very much. We always appreciate the fact that you guys are even here listening to this right now. It's a big deal. That's why we do it. We hope you enjoyed yourselves. We enjoyed doing it. So let us know what you think. You can hit us up, cheatcodespodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. And we're also recently partnered with Art19. So no matter where you get your podcasts, maybe focus on them, because they're helping us distribute our content now, and we're super excited about that. We love you. We're on Patreon. If you haven't already donated, please consider it. You can get in for as cheap as $2 a month. We're working on hitting those tiers so that we can start generating even more content, and a lot of those tiers have a lot of fan and enthusiast interaction. So if you feel like it's worth it, we would appreciate your monies. And I promise you, it's not like we're not gilding our pockets or anything. We're just trying to keep the show going and make it better. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go check out Patreon. Check us out. We love you very much. Rest in peace, Kenny Baker. We will see you next week.